We are taught to follow, to obey the laws of tradition, the comfort of consensus, the gentle guidance of morality. We are told who we are, what is right and what is wrong. And in the quiet acceptance of these truths, we find our place in the world. But what if these truths were not handed down from above? What if they were, in fact, our greatest chains? What if the values we hold dear were not a sacred gift, but a cage we have built for ourselves? A cage of weakness, resentment, and fear. What if the highest act of a human being is not to follow a rule, but to break it? Not to obey a god, but to become one? Today, we will speak with a philosopher who was not content with the answers. He was a man who challenged the very foundations of Western civilization and called for a new kind of human being, one with the courage to tear down the old and create something entirely new. He was a voice that cried out in a wilderness of conformity, and whose final monumental work presented a prophecy and a challenge to abandon the herd and find the strength to become a master of yourself. Friedrich Nietzsche was born in 1844 in Brocken, Prussia, the son of a Lutheran pastor. His father's early death plunged his family into a world dominated by women and a childhood marked by an almost spiritual precociousness. He was a brilliant student of classical philology, but his health was always precarious and his academic career was short-lived. At the age of 24, he became a professor at the University of Basel, but chronic illness, severe migraines, near blindness, forced him to resign just 10 years later. He spent the next decade as a wandering, solitary intellectual, writing in hotels and pension houses across Europe, a man without a country, without a home, and without a friend. It was during this period of intense solitude and suffering that his most revolutionary ideas took form. He fiercely criticized Christianity, democracy, and what he saw as the decadent morality of his time. He was a philosopher who wrote with the passion and insight of a poet, and his legacy would go on to shape modern philosophy, psychology, and literature. But it was his self-proclaimed masterpiece, written in a burst of creative frenzy, that would contain his most powerful and controversial ideas about power, will, and the future of humanity. Also sprach Zarathustra, thus spoke Zarathustra. In this imagined conversation, we will wrestle with the prophetic and poetic ideas of Friedrich Nietzsche's 1883 to 1885 work, Thus Spoke Zarathustra. This book is not a traditional philosophical text, but a work of fiction filled with parables and aphorisms designed to communicate Nietzsche's most radical ideas. At its core, it is a manifesto for the Übermensch, a human being who has overcome conventional morality and created his own values. This journey is fueled by the will to power, a fundamental drive in all living things, not for mere survival, but for growth, self-mastery, and self-overcoming. We will challenge him on these explosive and often misunderstood concepts. What is the true meaning of the death of God, and what are its consequences for humanity? How does the will to power differ from a simple desire for dominance? And what is the painful yet liberating process of becoming the Übermensch? So prepare to be profoundly unsettled, for Nietzsche's philosophy is not a path to comfort, but a call to the kind of painful self-creation that is both terrifying and glorious.
Mr. Nietzsche, you famously declared that God is dead. Was this a proclamation of atheism, or did it have a deeper, more profound meaning?
It was not a theological statement, but a cultural diagnosis. God is dead because we have killed him, through science, reason, and our own moral progress. We have lost our belief in a divine order that gives meaning to the universe. This is not a tragedy, but a liberation. It means we are now free from the old chains of heaven and morality, but it also leaves us in a great void, without a moral compass.
This death of God seems to leave us with a crisis of nihilism. You describe it as the great uncharted sea. How do we navigate this?
Indeed, the greatest danger is that men will lose hope and purpose without the old divine framework. They will sink into a state of passivity, becoming what I call the last man, the comfortable, complacent being who only seeks comfort and security. To navigate this new sea, we must have the courage to create our own values.
This seems to require a new kind of force within us. You call this the will to power. What is it?
The will to power is not a crude desire for dominance over others, as it is often misunderstood. It is the fundamental drive of all living things to grow, to expand, to overcome obstacles, and to master oneself. It is the creative force, the impulse towards self-mastery and self-overcoming. It is the drive to become more than you are.
And the end goal of this will to power is the Übermensch, Overman. Can you explain this concept to us?
The Übermensch is not a superhuman, but a new kind of human being. He is the one who has looked into the abyss of a godless world and instead of despairing, has found the strength to create his own meaning. He is the master of his passions, not their slave. He is the one who has overcome the herd morality of weakness and resentment. He is the one who has become a law unto himself.
You describe the journey to the Übermensch in the parable of the three transformations: the camel, the lion, and the child. Could you briefly explain this?
First, we are the camel. We kneel and take on the heavy burdens of tradition and duty. We accept our morality without question. Then, the spirit becomes a lion, which says no to the old values. The lion seeks freedom from the chains of tradition. But this is not the end. Finally, the lion becomes a child, innocent, with a new beginning. The child says yes to life and has the freedom to create new values from scratch.
This is a solitary journey. What role does herd morality play in this?
The herd is the great enemy of the Übermensch. Herd morality is the morality of the weak. It values meekness, obedience, and conformity. It says, "You must be like us." It is driven by resentment against the strong. The Übermensch must break free from the herd, for it is in the solitude of self-creation that true power is found.
You present a thought experiment called the eternal recurrence. What is this idea?
The eternal recurrence is a test. Imagine if a demon came to you and said that every moment of your life, every joy, every pain, every thought would happen again and again for all eternity in the exact same sequence.
How does one answer this demon?
The question is, would you sink to your knees and curse the demon? Or would you reply, "You are a god. Never have I heard anything more divine"? The Übermensch is the one who loves his fate so much that he wishes to live it again and again and again. It is not a punishment, but a profound affirmation of one's entire existence.
In conclusion, your philosophy is a call to a life of great courage.
It is a call to be an artist of your own life, to look at the abyss and not only not be afraid, but to find in it the materials to build your own bridge, to be a creator, not a follower.
Mr. Nietzsche, in an era of social media, people are intensely focused on personal branding and self-improvement. Is this a form of the will to power, or is it a new form of herd morality?
It is a cunning imitation, a domesticated form of the will to power. They speak of self-creation, but what they are creating is a self that is pleasing to the herd. They are not overcoming themselves, they are optimizing a persona for approval. The goal is not to become a law unto oneself, but to gain more followers. True self-overcoming is lonely and dangerous. The quest for likes and validation is the very essence of herd mentality, a subtle form of slavery disguised as freedom.
Friedrich Nietzsche, the lone voice from the mountains, leaves us with a terrifying and magnificent legacy. He looked at a world without God and did not see a disaster, but an opportunity. He saw in the will to power a primal force that, once unleashed, could transform humanity. His philosophy is not a guidebook for the weak, but a challenge to the strong. He calls us to create our own values, to embrace the difficult journey of self-overcoming, and to become the Übermensch who can look upon their life and say yes to it eternally. Yes, Nietzsche said, man is a rope tied between beast and Übermensch, a rope over an abyss, and with every step, the choice is ours.